And welcome to Got Clutter, Get Organized, the conversation. I am excited because I have Carina.
Yeah,
I always like to make sure I pronounce people's name right. Lawson here. And I'm going to read because she is doing some amazing things. First of all, she's a business efficiency consultant, high performance coach. But of course, what I'm really interested in, she is the founder of Ponderlily Paper and Planners. So, I'm really super excited. So, thank you so much for joining us today.
thank you so much for having me, Jenna. I'm excited about our conversation today.
So, of course, before we get into like how really people can be more efficient in the work environment, I wanted to talk to you just about your journey. I mean, you're a business efficiency consultant, high performance coach. You created a planner. Like, how was that journey? Share with us.
Of course. So, my uh, children were just about 8 months old. I've got twins, and I had always been someone who kept herself busy between schoolwork and working full time. I've always kept myself busy. I've always had a planner. I've always um, had a life that was pretty much on the go. However, I found myself at one point in my life, and this was about 7 years ago, where I was overscheduled, overweight. I was overwhelmed and successful. And I wondered if there was a different way to do things because, for the sake of my health, what I didn't know at the time, but what I was actively doing is that in the many pages of my planner, I couldn't find myself. I couldn't see things that I was doing for me. I couldn't see things that I was doing that reflected my values. I always said I really value family and my health. And when I looked in the pages of my planner, I couldn't see a time where I was dedicating to working out. I couldn't see a time that I was dedicating to um, keeping my appointments with my doctors, right? And I should have been paying closer attention to that because I had not one but two raging autoimmune conditions that kept me very tired, that I brushed off as something like, I'll just catch up on my sleep on the weekend. And that wasn't cutting it. And once I drew a line in the sand and I figured out that that's not the way that I wanted to lead my life so that I could live my life, um, that's when I realized that I deserve better. So my children deserve better. My friends, my family. Although I was doing very well at work, I could only imagine how much better I could get at my job if I could regain my focus, if I could regain my energy. So, and it's so interesting that when people ask me this question, how it all started, what comes to mind for me is almond milk, because I had a very sweet, very dear friend visit me when my twins were just a few months old. And I had mentioned, I'm not feeling very well because I didn't know at the time I was having symptoms from an autoimmune condition. And she, very well meaning, suggested that I made almond milk myself by hand. And, mind you, there's a time and a place for making your own almond milk, listeners. There's also a time and a place to pick that up from the supermarket. I had no business doing that when I was trying to keep two little children alive. And I thought that, okay, like the perfectionist in me, the person that was always trying to people please within me, said, people will value me if I do this, if I try to get the muslin cloth and squeeze the almonds and make the thing. Long story short, it didn't taste great. I could have picked it up from the supermarket. I could have saved a lot of time. And I just decided, I'm not going to do this. Like, I'm sorry. No. And I didn't want my children to be faced with that type of decision. Am I a professional, or am I the mom that cuts things into shapes and makes the almond milk, right? And so I started questioning balance a lot. And I know that your initial question was like, how did this happen? Well, I first realized there was a better way to lead my life instead of so I could live in it, right? And I realized as well that it would start with me. And so I wanted to create a tool, a productivity tool that started with um, intentions that had my health like in the center so that my life wasn't shifting to the margins. And in having conversations in my master's degree research, I actually researched workplace wellness, and so I've had the opportunity to talk to many people about what makes them perform at their best at work and what makes them feel at their best, right? And so I during my lunch break I just took out a piece of paper and pen, and right before I knew it, there was the weekly pages, the weekly spread of the Ponderlily Planner. And lucky for me, I have had amazing coworkers that I could just say, you're a single mom. Can you look at this? You've got 2 kids. Can you look at this? Like you are a professional who's super busy and on the go. Can you look at this? In having, and even my male colleagues weighed in. And so in developing that, a system that would put people's agendas front and center, their health agendas front and center, and yet was flexible enough is what prompted me to every 15 minutes that I had that was of my spare time, whether it was during my lunch break or right before my kids went to bed, I would find space to launch this business. And I cannot believe to this day that it all started in my kid's nursing chair, me Googling how to take a planner from Microsoft Word to, you know, and since then I've been very fortunate to help so many people in their journey for making quality decisions with their time. And
Mhm.
so it's been 7 years. I've learned so much. I've been able to meet so many wonderful people. And I always find that when you do something that really sits well with you, that you're passionate about, the world aligns in your favor. My sweet father-in-law came out of retirement to help me with the company. He really enjoys it and he really supports this dream of mine, and I'm so grateful. My sweet friend, who's a graphic designer, helped me like talk about do production so that I could do print the planners, right? And so again, the world aligns in your favor when you find your calling and when you find your purpose. So
And that's a wonderful story. It just lets you know that when you realize that maybe there's something missing out of your life that you need, and how just by creating something, it can impact so many others. So thank you for sharing that. So my first question to you is, because you do work with business professional people, what impact does clutter specifically have on the work environment? Because a lot of
oh
times you hear all about clutter in the home, and but what about the work environment?
and the work environment starts with their desk, right? So clutter on their desk, like it really impacts the way that they start and end their workday. um,
Mhm.
I hear from a lot of clients when they say like I never know when to close my laptop and finish. I'm like, do you create a ritual, right? Perhaps like tidying your desk so that when you arrive, when you sit down at your desk, you have it feels like you're driving it, right? Like you have a purpose. It's a clean slate. And so your whole attitude changes when you've got a space that's warm and welcoming, that has a reminder of why you're there in the first place, right? So I'm just looking over at my desk right now. There's a picture of my family, and it has very soothing, clean, white background because I like to feel like I'm stepping into a clean slate for my day. So clearing out clutter in your workspace is extremely important because it affects your focus, your ability to focus, which in turn has an impact on your performance. And your environment sets the tone to how your mood is going to go, right? Like it sets the tone to how you sit at your chair. Um, and it also creates a space where other people feel welcome and other people feel like you've got your stuff together, so it has a huge impact. Professional, especially my professional clients, they want to have that, even if they work, whether it's a cubicle or in the C-suite, like they want their people to feel a certain way when they come in their space that reflects the type of professional and person that they are.
And you're right about that because, as you probably have experienced, I know I have, when you are working with people and you do see all that stuff on the desk, and you may have to be the person that has to put something on the desk, you're almost like, now, wait a minute, if I put it here, is it going to get lost? What's going to happen? And then you start thinking of creative, well, where can I put it so they'll at least see it because it won't get lost? But you're right. It's like when you walk into that space, when you do have it a little bit more you're strategic about the way you leave it, and when you come into that space you're a lot more productive. So you already talked about the clear, really talking about clear desk. Are there a couple of more strategies that professionals need to really thinking about in regards to decluttering so they can be more effective and efficient in the workplace?
Oh, I think this is a top tip that I started using, that has really um, created anchors for me. Like right at the beginning of every month, I have a really fun calendar, um, like a calendar reminder to like do a big tidy in my office and kind of like to shake things up. I like to like have, change the pictures that I've got in my office. Like I have a look at like how my drawers are looking, because it's not just what people can see. It's like clearing out the clutter within your cabinets, like and your files. Are they all sorted out? But creating a really fun reminder, like tidy, tidy for like mine is like clear your space and make like clear, just clearing your space for for a better, for a better month. So, like, and create like different prompts and things like that. So you get into the habit of it. And then, speaking of habits, once you do that, create something that then anchors that behavior so that you continue to do it and you end up enjoying it. So, at the beginning of every month, like that's when I clear my slate and I give my office like a much more intentional tidy. And I always make sure I get a cup of coffee from my favorite coffee place, like at the university where I work. And so that's, again, so my brain creates those neural pathways like, oh, it's like that fun time of the month where I get to like, give my office a bit of a tidy. And I always like time myself as well so that I know I'm not going to be doing that forever. And it's almost like a game. Like how long will it take for me to sort out my files this month? And I know that immediately after that, I get to go get a really delicious cup of coffee. So it not only gets me into the habit of being intentional and getting it done, but I look forward to it the following month.
And I like that because so many times when we are thinking about organizing, we schedule times for our home and those spaces. But I like the way you're intentional about every month. You really kind of focus on the office because with the office, there's so much going on. Projects get finished, then projects get started, and then it's just so much, things, whether it's paperwork or digital, etc., that you really have to manage. So I really like the way you just are intentional about that once a month that you actually focus on it because then that really does make you more productive because then you're really more focused on the things that you have to do and not on the stuff that you've already done. Wow. Well, Corinna, I could talk to you forever. But one of the things I want to talk to you about is how do you stay organized? Because you've got the planner, you've got the kids, the
Mhm.
family, you've got all these things just to manage. But how do, like, maybe a tip or two on how you stay organized?
Right. Just for everyone listening, I don't do all those things at the same time. I'm very intentional about managing my energy more so than my calendar. So I have, and I kind of alluded that when I said that I have like my fun filing Fridays or like my, that I typically have a big clear out on the first of the month. But I like to start my week well, and by that, I mean that not on Monday and not on Sunday, but like Friday, like when I end my work week, I like to look ahead and ask myself, what do I have to look forward to next week? What's going to be exciting? Instead of like, I've got this appointment, I've got that appointment. So I start with the fun stuff first because, you've got one life. We all have things that we like to look forward to. So I start with what I've got to look forward to. I think about then what worked well for me the previous week. And then I start managing my calendar, meaning that, like, okay, if I've got a busy week ahead, like, I need to make sure that I've got some anchors for downtime, or make sure that my appointments are not back to back. I stay organized with Ponderlily, for example, is that I take my Thursdays are the days that I typically do this exercise, and I work in the business a lot more intentionally than other days of the week. I see coaching clients twice a week, and I'm very intentional about those blocks of time. My clients are professionals, so they like to have a standing appointment with me, which is helpful for both of us. And my calendar does not get touched on the weekends because that's the time that I spend with my children, and any time that there's a special date for that, for their school or anything like that. So that's how I typically stay organized. I find something that I can look forward to the week ahead. I find things that worked well for me the week before, any lessons that I may have learned. And I typically dedicate days of the week to push and pull, and I'm very open to, and I think it's a mindset habit that I've created. I'm very open to being flexible. Yes, I've got things scheduled because that structure allows me to anticipate when things are coming, right? But it doesn't mean that it stays the same every week. There are different reasons for different seasons in our lives. And sometimes, like, I make sure that I'm not I'm not seeing as many clients, right, during the summer holidays, or that Ponderlily is a very cyclical business that I'm using my time intentionally within those seasons. And like, I'm really in tune with what I need in terms of my energy management, meaning I perform better when I set an intention and I leave myself enough time in between appointments. I know what happens when I don't do that. The other thing that's very important to me is that I'm constantly checking in to see whether what's on my calendar is in line with my values, because I like to make value-based decisions, meaning, like, where is my workout time in my schedule? Right? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be at 8 a.m. or like at 9 a.m. every day. But it needs to happen for my health. And that's very important to me. So that is something that is not necessarily time bound in my calendar, but it's something that I know needs to happen. Right? Like, I look forward to my walks every day, whether they happen after I drop my kids off at school, before I go to work, because I do work a 9 to 5, or whether it happens, like, in the evenings, but right before I go to bed. But my walks always happen.
And I'm so glad you said that because my walks always happen too. Like you said, it's either sometimes early in the morning, or if because I've got an early morning appointment, I may, squeeze it in the afternoon during lunch. But you just said so many wonderful things. And one thing you did say was that how your calendar is really value based, your schedule. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes people don't understand that because we do have control of what we put on our calendar and we spend our time on, and it really can focus on all the things that you value. But also, you said something about energy too, because that's important as well. And of course, I'm an advocate, and it bothers me sometimes when I hear people, oh, I'm not taking lunches, I'm not taking breaks. No, you need to take care of you. You need to take care of you. So, how can people connect with you? But most importantly, how can they find out more about the planner?
Of course, like, you can find out more about the planners at www ponderlily.com. I'm sure Janet will put these in the show notes, and you can connect with me at We Are Ponderlily on Instagram. I answer all DMs myself. You're probably likely going to get a voice note from me because I usually answer reply to things while I'm on that walk that I talked about with Janet earlier. So yeah, I love to connect with everyone, and yeah, reach out.
Mm. It has truly been a pleasure to talk to you today. And again, those watching and those listening, I will have all the information on how you can get your planner in the show notes. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Janet. It was my pleasure.